The rain pounded against the windshield of David Chen's luxury car as he drove home after a long day of meetings. The digital clock on his dashboard read 11:37 p.m. Another late night, but that was normal for him. Building a tech company worth millions hadn't happened by working 9 to 5. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the empty country road ahead. David preferred this route home to his lakeside mansion. Fewer people, no traffic lights, just darkness and the sound of his thoughts. The radio played softly in the background, some late-night talk show discussing the economy. He wasn't really listening. As he rounded a bend, his headlights caught something on the roadside ahead, a car with its hazard lights blinking weakly. It was pulled over at an awkward angle, half on the shoulder, half on the grass. Not my problem, David muttered to himself, easing off the gas slightly. He'd learned long ago that success meant focusing on his own path. Getting involved in other people's troubles was a distraction he couldn't afford, but something made him slow down as he passed the car. Maybe it was the way it was parked, too haphazard, like whoever had been driving hadn't had time to pull over properly. Maybe it was because there were no other cars for miles on this stormy night. Or maybe, though he'd never admit it was the tiny voice of his grandmother echoing from childhood. Never pass someone who needs help. Davy, that could be you someday. With a frustrated sigh, David hit the brakes and pulled over about 50 feet ahead of the stranded vehicle. He reached for his phone, thinking he'd call roadside assistance for whoever was stuck out here and be on his way. That would be enough, right? But as his hand touched his phone, he heard something that made him freeze. The sound was faint beneath the drumming rain, but unmistakable, a baby crying. David got out of his car without thinking, the rain immediately soaking through his expensive suit. He jogged back to the stranded car, his designer shoes splashing through puddles. It was an old sedan, at least 10 years old, with rust starting to eat at the wheel wells. The hazard lights blinked orange in the dark, but all the other lights were off. As he got closer, the crying became louder, and then he realized it wasn't just one baby. There were multiple cries coming from inside. He peered through the driver's window, cupping his hands around his eyes to block the glare. What he saw made his heart jump into his throat. A young woman was slumped over the steering wheel, unmoving. In the back seat, secured in car seats, were 3 babies, identical triplets from the look of them, all red-faced and crying. David yanked at the door handle. It was unlocked. The interior light flickered on, revealing more details. The woman was breathing, but her breathing was shallow. Her skin was pale and clammy. The babies, who looked to be about 9 months old, were strapped safely in their car seats but clearly distressed. "Hey, ma'am, can you hear me?" David gently shook the woman's shoulder. No response. Rainwater dripped from his hair onto her arm as he reached across to check her pulse. It was there, but weak and rapid. His mind raced. What was wrong with her? Should he move her? Was it safe to take the babies out in this storm? That's when he noticed a medical bracelet on her wrist. He turned it to read the engraving. Lily Walker, type 1 diabetes, hypoglycemia risk. Damn, he whispered. She needed sugar, and fast. David sprinted back to his car, grabbed his phone and a half-finished sports drink from the cup holder, then ran back to Lily. He dialed 911 as he got back into the driver's seat beside her. 911, what's your emergency? The operator's voice was calm and clear. I found a car stopped on the side of County Road 27, about 5 miles east of the Lake Junction exit. There's an unconscious woman with 3 babies. She has a medical bracelet that says she's diabetic. I think she's having a hypoglycemic episode. David surprised himself with how steady his voice sounded. Is she breathing? Is she responsive at all? She's breathing but not responding when I talk to her or shake her shoulder. Do you know how to check if someone is hypoglycemic? No, but her bracelet specifically mentions hypoglycemia risk. Okay, sir. I'm dispatching an ambulance to your location. It should be there in about 15 minutes. Do you see any glucose tablets, juice, or candy in the car? David looked around quickly. No, nothing like that. Do you have any food or drinks with sugar? I have a sports drink. That might help. Try to get a small amount into her mouth, on the inside of her cheek. But be very careful not to pour too much since she's unconscious. The operator walked him through how to safely give Lily a few drops of the sugary drink. As he did this, the babies continued to cry, their wails growing more desperate. The babies in the back, they sound upset, David said, feeling helpless. How old do they appear to be? I don't know. Maybe 9 months? They're in car seats. Are they secured properly? Do they appear injured? David turned to look more carefully at the three identical faces. They seem okay, just scared and upset. The car seats look secure. Try talking to them calmly while we wait for the ambulance. Sometimes just a human voice can help. David had never felt more out of place. Boardrooms and investment meetings were his territory, not calming crying babies. But he turned awkwardly in his seat and tried. Hey there, little ones. It's okay. Help is coming for your mom. Everything's going to be all right. His words had no effect on their crying. One of them reached out tiny hands toward him, face crumpled in distress. Just then, Lily stirred slightly. Her eyelids fluttered. I think she's coming around, David told the operator. Keep talking to her. Keep trying with small amounts of the sugary drink. Lily? Lily, can you hear me? My name is David. I found your car. Help is on the way. Her eyes opened halfway, unfocused. My babies, she whispered. They're okay. They're right here in the back seat. Lily tried to turn but seemed too weak. Need bag. What bag? Where is it? She weakly gestured toward the passenger seat floor. David leaned over and found a small purse. Inside was a glucose monitoring kit and a tube of glucose gel. I found glucose gel, he told the operator. Perfect. Apply it to the inside of her cheek. David did as instructed, squeezing the gel carefully into Lily's mouth. Within a minute, her eyes became more focused. My babies, she said again, her voice slightly stronger. They're okay, just upset. The ambulance is coming. Tears filled Lily's eyes. I felt it coming. Tried to pull over. Thought I had time to get my glucose. Her words were slow but clearer now. David didn't know what to say. He'd never been in a situation like this. His life was organized, controlled, predictable. This was chaos. One of the babies let out a particularly piercing cry. Lily tried to turn around but was still too weak. Is there anything I can do for them? David asked hesitantly. Talk to them. They know my voice, but any gentle voice helps. She was becoming more alert as the glucose took effect. David turned back to the triplets. This time he reached out and gently touched one tiny hand. The baby grabbed his finger with surprising strength. Hey there, buddy. Your mom's going to be okay. In the distance, the wail of a siren cut through the sound of the rain. They're almost here, David said, relief flooding through him. Lily was sitting up straighter now. Thank you, she said, meeting his eyes for the first time. If you hadn't stopped. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The ambulance pulled up behind them, red and blue lights painting the rainy night in flashes of color. Two paramedics rushed toward them. As they took over, checking Lily's vitals and glucose levels, David stepped back into the rain. He should leave now. The professionals were here. His good deed was done, but he couldn't make himself walk away. He watched as they helped Lily into the ambulance, then carefully removed each car seat with the babies still strapped inside. Sir, are you a relative? One of the paramedics asked him. No, I just found them. Well, you probably saved their lives tonight. Another half hour out here. David nodded, water streaming down his face. He told himself it was just the rain. Where are you taking them? He heard himself ask. County General. It's the closest hospital. David nodded again. He should go home. Change out of these wet clothes, get some sleep before tomorrow's meetings. That would be the sensible thing to do. Instead, he heard himself say, I'll follow you there. As he walked back to his car, David Chen realized something had shifted inside him. For years, he'd measured his worth by the millions in his bank accounts, by the deals he closed, by the power he wielded in boardrooms. But nothing. Not closing $1 billion deal. Not buying his mansion. Not seeing his company's stock price soar. Nothing had ever made him feel the way he felt when that baby had gripped his finger and the crying had quieted. Just for a moment. He didn't know what would happen next. He just knew he couldn't simply drive away and go back to his life as if this night had never happened. As he followed the ambulance's taillights through the rainy darkness, David had the strange feeling that he had been driving toward this moment his entire life, without ever knowing it. David sat in the hospital waiting room, still in his rain-soaked suit. His phone buzzed with messages from his assistant about tomorrow's meetings, but he ignored them. The harsh fluorescent lights made everything look pale and unreal, like he was in some strange dream he couldn't wake up from. It had been 2 hours since the ambulance had brought Lily and her triplets to County General. A kind nurse had updated him once, saying Lily's condition was stabilizing. The babies were being checked by a pediatrician just as a precaution. You can go home, sir, the nurse had told him. We have your contact information if Ms. Walker wants to reach you. But David couldn't bring himself to leave. Something kept him rooted to the uncomfortable plastic chair, staring at the flickering vending machine across the room. He didn't understand it himself. He'd done his part, more than most would have done. Why wasn't that enough? The sound of wheels on linoleum made him look up. A nurse was pushing Lily in a wheelchair. She looked exhausted but alert, the color back in her cheeks. Behind them, another nurse followed with a rolling crib that somehow contained all 3 sleeping babies. "Mr. Chen?" Lily's voice was soft but clear. "They said you were still here." David stood up, suddenly aware of his rumpled appearance. "I wanted to make sure you and the kids were okay." The nurse parked the wheelchair near him. "I'll give you folks a minute," she said, stepping away but staying within eyesight. An awkward silence hung between them. "What did you say to a stranger whose life you might have saved?" "I don't know how to thank you," Lily finally said, her hands fidgeting in her lap. "If you hadn't stopped, anyone would have done the same," David replied automatically. Lily gave him a small, sad smile. "No, they wouldn't. I've learned that the hard way." Something in her voice made David really look at her for the first time. She was younger than he'd initially thought, maybe in her late 20s. Her clothes were clean but worn, with the kind of fading that comes from too many washes. No wedding ring on her finger. Dark circles under her eyes that probably weren't just from tonight's emergency. "The doctor said I can go home," she continued. "Oh, but my car? It's still on the side of the road," David finished for her. "I can give you a ride." The words came out before he could think about them. "I can't ask you to do that. You've already done so much. I can call—" She trailed off, her eyes darting away. "Who would you call?" David asked gently. Lily's shoulders slumped slightly. "I don't know. My parents live across the country. I don't have many friends here yet. We just moved 3 months ago for my job at the call center." One of the babies stirred in the crib, making tiny snuffling noises. Lily immediately reached out, her hand hovering protectively over the bundle of blankets. "Which one is that?" David asked, trying to ease the tension. A genuine smile crossed Lily's face. "That's Noah. He's always the first to wake up. Tyler is in the middle. See the blue blanket? And the one with the yellow pacifier is Aaron. 3 boys. That must be overwhelming?" Lily finished with a small laugh. "Yeah, it is. But they're my world." David's phone buzzed again. This time he pulled it out, saw 6 missed calls from his assistant, and turned it off completely. "Look," he said. "Let me drive you and your boys home. It's the least I can do." 20 minutes later, after signing discharge papers and getting instructions from the doctor, they were in David's car. The triplets' car seats had been brought from Lily's vehicle by a helpful security guard. Now David found himself driving through the early morning darkness with more babies in his backseat than he'd been near in his entire adult life. "Turn left at the next light," Lily directed. Her voice was getting tired again. The neighborhood they entered was a far cry from David's lakeside estate. Small apartment buildings with peeling paint lined the streets. A few had boarded up windows. "The blue building," Lily pointed. "Apartment 2C." David parked and helped her carry the sleeping babies up a narrow staircase. Each step creaked loudly, but the triplets, exhausted from their ordeal, didn't stir. Lily fumbled with her keys, finally pushing open a door to reveal a tiny but immaculately clean 1-bedroom apartment. There was hardly any furniture, just a worn couch, a small table with 2 chairs, and a playpen in the corner filled with baby toys. "You can put them on my bed for now," Lily whispered, leading him to the only bedroom. 3 cribs were crammed into the small space, leaving just enough room for a twin mattress on the floor. After they settled the babies, Lily offered him water, the only beverage she had. They sat at her small table, the silence heavy between them. "I should get some rest," David finally said, standing up. "And you should too." Lily nodded, but then bit her lip. "Your number? Could I have it? Just in case I need to reach you. About the car, I mean." "Of course." David scribbled his personal cell number on a notepad by her phone. As he wrote, he noticed a stack of past due bills held together with a paperclip. Medical bills, rent notices, utility warnings. He hesitated, then said, "Lily, if you need any help." "We're fine." She cut him off, a flash of pride in her eyes. "I've got a job. We manage." David nodded, respecting her dignity. "I understand. Good night, Lily." "Good night, David, and thank you for everything." The drive back to his mansion felt longer than usual. Dawn was breaking as he pulled into his circular driveway, his home looming large and empty before him. He couldn't stop thinking about Lily's tiny apartment, about how she'd made a home for those 3 babies in that small space, about the pride in her voice when she'd refused his help, even with those bills stacked on her counter. His housekeeper greeted him with surprise when he walked in. "Mr. Chen, your clothes, are you all right?" "I'm fine, Mrs. Reynolds, just had an unexpected night." He showered and changed, but instead of sleeping, he found himself in his home office, staring out the window at the lake. His assistant had left 17 messages, each more urgent than the last. The Hong Kong deal needed his attention. The board was waiting for his decision on the merger. None of it seemed to matter. With a sudden clarity that surprised him, David picked up his phone and called his assistant. "Cancel my meetings today," he said, "and find me everything you can about diabetes management and resources for single parents." "Sir?" His assistant sounded confused. "Also, I need the name of a good mechanic who makes house calls. Or car calls, I guess." After hanging up, David did something he hadn't done in years. He made himself breakfast. As he ate, he scrolled through his contacts until he found the number for his lawyer. "Brian? It's David Chen. I need to set up a foundation. Today." When his lawyer began to explain the time it would take, David cut him off. "I don't care what it costs or what strings you have to pull. I want this done immediately." Later that afternoon, as David was reviewing the papers for his new family support foundation, his phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Mr. Chen, it's Lily Walker. I hope it's okay that I called. The strangest thing happened. My car was just delivered to my apartment, completely fixed, and there was a package with 3 months' worth of diabetes supplies. I didn't order any of that." David smiled for what felt like the first time in years. "That is strange," he said. "Must be your lucky day." "Mr. Chen," her voice was hesitant. "Was this you?" "Call me David, please." There was a pause. "I can't accept this." "It's too much. It's not charity, Lily," David said firmly. "It's an investment." "In what?" "In you, and those 3 boys who are going to change the world someday." He took a deep breath. "And if you're willing, I have a job offer I'd like to discuss with you." The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that David thought she might have hung up. Finally, in a voice thick with emotion, Lily asked, "Why would you do this for us?" "You don't even know us." David looked out at the lake, watching the sunlight dance across the water. "Maybe I'm just tired of only knowing people like me," he said honestly. "Maybe it's time I got to know people worth knowing." 3 weeks had passed since that rainy night, and Lily stood nervously outside the gleaming glass headquarters of Chen Technologies. Her reflection stared back at her, a young woman in a newly purchased but modest navy blue dress, hair neatly pulled back, holding a simple leather portfolio that had been a gift from David. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, adjusting 1-year-old Aaron on her hip while keeping a watchful eye on Noah and Tyler in their double stroller. Today was her first official day working for David Chen. After much discussion, she had accepted his job offer, a position created specifically for her as community outreach coordinator for his newly formed foundation. The salary he offered was 3 times what she'd made at the call center, with flexible hours and, most importantly, an on-site childcare center for the Triplets. "It's not charity," David had insisted when she'd questioned the generosity of the offer. "I need someone who understands firsthand what families in crisis need. You have experience I can't buy." The automatic doors slid open, and Lily took a deep breath before stepping into the cool, marble-floored lobby. Heads turned as she walked in with 3 babies, but she kept her chin up. A sleek-looking woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper suit approached them. "Ms. Walker? I'm Patricia Wong, Mr. Chen's executive assistant." Her eyes darted to the Triplets, a flicker of disapproval crossing her face. "I wasn't aware you'd be bringing guests on your first day." "Mr. Chen approved it," Lily replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "The childcare center isn't ready until next week." Patricia's eyebrows rose slightly, but she nodded. "Of course. This way, please." As they rode the elevator to the executive floor, Lily fought back doubts. Was she making a mistake? Would everyone see this as charity? Would she ever really fit in here? The elevator doors opened directly into a vast open-plan office. Through the glass walls of the corner office, she could see David on the phone, gesturing emphatically. When he spotted her, his face brightened, and he quickly ended his call. "Lily, you're here." he said, striding over. To Lily's surprise, he crouched down to the stroller. And hello to you two troublemakers? Noah giggled and reached out a chubby hand, which David playfully shook. The entire office had gone quiet, watching their CEO interact with the babies. David seemed to notice the stares and stood up, clearing his throat. Everyone, this is Lily Walker, our new community outreach coordinator. She'll be shaping the direction of the Chen Foundation. His voice carried authority that silenced any whispers. And these gentlemen, he added with a smile, are our youngest consultants. A nervous laugh rippled through the office. Patricia looked stunned. Let me show you to your office, David said, leading the way. It's next to mine. Lily followed, acutely aware of the curious glances. Her office turned out to be a converted conference room with plenty of space for both a desk and a play area. David had set up with a colorful mat and toys. Is this okay? He asked, suddenly looking uncertain. I thought you'd want them near you until the childcare center opens. Tears pricked at Lily's eyes. It's perfect, she managed to say. The first week was harder than Lily had imagined. Balancing work while keeping 3 one-year-olds entertained in an office was challenging enough, but the whispers made it worse. She overheard snippets in the break room, speculation about her relationship with David, comments about her qualifications, questions about why the CEO was personally invested in her success. David seemed oblivious to the gossip. Each day he'd stop by to check on her progress and spend a few minutes playing with the boys. She noticed he always took off his suit jacket and rolled up his sleeves before sitting on the floor with them. The triplets would light up when he appeared, especially Noah, who would crawl to him immediately. By the second week, Lily had begun to find her footing. The child care center opened, staffed by experienced caregivers who quickly fell in love with the triplets. Without the constant interruptions, Lily could focus on researching community needs and drafting proposals for the foundation. One afternoon, David invited her to join a meeting with potential investors. Lily sat quietly, taking notes, until one investor questioned the financial viability of a proposed program for single parents. The return on investment is unclear, the man said dismissively. These people rarely succeed even with help. Lily felt her cheeks burn. Before David could respond, she found herself speaking up. Actually, she said, her voice stronger than she expected. Studies show that single parents who receive targeted support have a 78% higher rate of financial stability within 5 years. Their children are 64% more likely to complete higher education. That's not just good social policy, it's good business. The room went silent. The investor looked taken aback. David smiled. Lily has been researching this extensively, he said. Perhaps you'd like to share the projections you developed? Somehow Lily found herself standing at the front of the room, confidently walking the investors through data she'd compiled. When she finished, the same investor who had dismissed the program was nodding thoughtfully. Well, he said, I stand corrected. You've got my support. After the meeting, David pulled her aside. That was brilliant, he said. Where did you learn to analyze data like that? Lily shrugged. I studied business administration before the triplets came along. Never finished my degree, but I remember the important parts. Something shifted after that meeting. The office whispers changed from skepticism to respect. Lily was invited to more meetings, her opinion sought on various projects. Even Patricia began treating her as a valuable team member rather than the CEO's charity case. But the most remarkable change was in David himself. The staff who had known him for years were astonished at the transformation. The man who had once been known for his ruthless business tactics and unapproachable demeanor now stopped to chat with employees, asked about their families, and sometimes even arrived with coffee for the overnight programming team. Every Friday afternoon, David would clear his schedule to spend time with Lily and the triplets. They started with lunch in his office, but soon he was taking them to the park or the children's museum. Photographers from gossip websites occasionally snapped pictures of the powerful CEO pushing a triple stroller, but David didn't seem to care about the speculation it caused. 4 months after Lily started working at Chen Technologies, a crisis hit. Their biggest project, a security system for a major bank, had a critical flaw discovered just days before launch. The company stood to lose millions and its reputation. David called an emergency meeting of all department heads. Lily wasn't invited, but she stayed late anyway, working on foundation proposals while the triplets napped in the childcare center. Around midnight, she ventured to the executive floor to check if David needed anything. She found him alone in the conference room, surrounded by empty coffee cups and discarded printouts, his head in his hands. "That bad?" she asked softly from the doorway. He looked up, exhaustion etched on his face. "Worse. We have to delay the launch, which means penalties, a stock price hit, and probably lawsuits." Lily picked up one of the discarded papers, scanning the technical specifications. "What if—" she began, then hesitated. "What if what?" David asked. "What if you're trying to fix the wrong problem?" Lily grabbed a marker and approached the whiteboard. "Look at these user pathways. The issue isn't in the security protocol itself, it's in how users interact with it." For the next hour, Lily outlined an alternative approach, drawing on her experience as a call center representative dealing with confused customers. David listened intently, asking questions, building on her ideas. By dawn, they had developed a solution, not a complete fix, but a workaround that would allow the launch to proceed safely while the full solution was implemented. "This could save us," David said, staring at the whiteboard in amazement. "How did everyone miss this?" "Sometimes you need a different perspective," Lily said simply. "Someone who sees things from the ground level." David looked at her for a long moment. "You're extraordinary, Lily Walker. You know that, right?" She blushed and looked away. "I'm just a mom trying to do right by my boys." "You're much more than that," David said softly. "You've changed everything around here, including me." As the sun rose over the city, lighting up the conference room with golden rays, Lily realized how far she'd come from that terrifying night on the roadside, and how far David had come from the isolated millionaire who had stopped to help a stranger. Neither of them could have predicted where that moment would lead, or how much further they still had to go. 6 months had passed since Lily joined Chen Technologies. The company had not only recovered from the security system crisis, but had emerged stronger, with David publicly crediting Lily's insight for saving the launch. The Chen Foundation was flourishing too, having already helped dozens of families in crisis with emergency support, job placement, and affordable childcare. Life had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. The triplets, now 18 months old, spent their days in the company's childcare center, often visited by David during his lunch breaks. Lily had grown confident in her role, respected by colleagues who had once doubted her. And David, the once isolated millionaire, seemed happier than anyone had ever seen him. Then came the article. Lily first heard about it from Patricia, who rushed into her office one morning with a tablet in hand, face tight with concern. "Have you seen this?" she asked, placing the tablet on Lily's desk. The headline from a popular gossip site screamed, "Tech Tycoon Secret Family? The Truth Behind David Chen's Mystery Woman and Triplets." Below it was a photo of David at the zoo with Lily and the boys, his hand resting casually on her shoulder as they watched the elephants. The article speculated wildly about their relationship, suggesting everything from a secret love child scenario to an elaborate publicity stunt for the foundation. Lily felt the blood drain from her face. "This is ridiculous," she whispered. "It gets worse," Patricia said grimly, scrolling down. "They've dug into your past." The article mentioned Lily's ex-husband who had abandoned her during her pregnancy, her financial struggles, and even her medical condition. It painted her as either a gold digger or a charity case, depending on which paragraph you read. "Mr. Chen has already been contacted by 3 major news outlets for comment," Patricia added. "The board is concerned about the company's image." Lily closed her eyes, feeling sick. This was exactly what she had feared from the beginning, becoming a liability to David and his company. "I should resign," she said quietly. Patricia's expression softened unexpectedly. "For what it's worth, I don't think you should. You've been good for this company." Good for him. Before Lily could respond, her phone rang. It was David. "Have you seen it?" he asked without preamble. "Yes." "David, I'm so sorry. Don't apologize," he cut her off. "You've done nothing wrong. I'm the one who should apologize. I've made you a target. I'm thinking I should step back from the foundation," Lily said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "At least until this blows over." There was a long pause. "Is that what you want?" "Of course not. But your reputation, the company—" "Meet me in my office in 5 minutes," David said, then hung up. When Lily arrived, she found not just David but also his PR director and the company's legal counsel. Their expressions were serious. "Sit down, Lily," David said gently. Then, to everyone's surprise, he perched on the edge of his desk, rather than taking his usual seat behind it. "We have a situation to address, but first I want to be clear about something. You are valuable to this company and to the foundation. Nothing in that article changes that." The PR director, a no-nonsense woman named Helen, spoke up. "We have 3 options. 1, ignore it and hope it goes away. 2, issue a formal statement clarifying your professional relationship. Or 3, go on the offensive." "What does on the offensive mean?" Lily asked. "A press conference," Helen explained. "Get ahead of the story by telling your own." David looked at Lily. "It's your call. Your privacy, your life." Lily thought about the triplets, about the other families the foundation was helping, about the message it would send if she slunk away in shame. "Press conference," she said firmly. "But I want to be clear. I won't pretend to be something I'm not. No made-up stories to make this more palatable." David smiled, relief evident on his face. "Just the truth, then. Our truth." The next 48 hours were a whirlwind of preparation. The press conference was scheduled. Key talking points developed. Potential questions anticipated. Lily's parents flew in from across the country to watch the triplets during the event. Standing backstage at Chen Technologies Auditorium, Lily smoothed down her simple blue dress, the same one she'd worn on her first day. David stood beside her in his usual suit, but he'd foregone a tie and looked more approachable. "Nervous?" he asked. "Terrified," she admitted. He surprised her by taking her hand and squeezing it gently. "Me too. You? The great David Chen, afraid of a few reporters?" His eyes met hers. "I'm afraid of losing what we've built here. The foundation, yes, but also—" He hesitated. "This friendship, it matters to me." Before Lily could respond, Helen signaled it was time to begin. The auditorium was packed with reporters and cameras. As they walked onto the stage, flashbulbs popped and questions were shouted. David held up his hand for silence. "Thank you for coming," he began. "Ms. Walker and I are here to address the speculation about our relationship and to set the record straight." He told the story of that rainy night, of finding Lily unconscious with 3 crying babies in the back seat. He explained the foundation's creation, Lily's role, and the success they'd achieved helping families in similar situations. When it was Lily's turn to speak, she took a deep breath and stepped forward. "6 months ago, I was working at a call center, barely making ends meet, trying to raise 3 boys on my own," she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Today I help shape programs that support families like mine. That change didn't happen because David Chen took pity on me. It happened because he saw value where others saw only need." A reporter raised his hand. "But what exactly is the nature of your relationship?" Lily and David exchanged a glance. They had prepared for this question, but now that it was asked, the rehearsed answer felt hollow. David stepped closer to the microphone. "The nature of our relationship is evolving." A murmur went through the crowd. "What began as a chance encounter has become a partnership I deeply value. Lily challenges me to be better, as a businessman, as a community member, and as a human being." Another reporter jumped in. "Are you romantically involved?" Lily felt her face flush. "This wasn't in the talking points. Our connection isn't that simple to define," David said carefully. "But what I can tell you is this. Lily and her boys have brought more joy into my life than all my business success combined." The press conference continued, with questions about the foundation, about Lily's background, about David's change in management style. Through it all, they stood side by side, finishing each other's sentences, exchanging glances, presenting a united front. As the event wound down, a young reporter asked the question that would change everything. "Mr. Chen, you were raised in foster care after losing your parents. Do you see yourself as a father figure to Ms. Walker's children?" The room went silent. David froze momentarily, and Lily realized with a shock that she had never known this about him. He had never mentioned his childhood. David cleared his throat. "I believe family isn't just about who you're born to," he said quietly. "It's about who shows up for you when it matters, who sees your value when you can't see it yourself. By that definition, yes, I hope to be a positive figure in their lives, however Lily and the boys will have me." The press conference ended soon after. but the impact of that moment lingered. As they walked backstage away from the cameras, Lily turned to David. "You never told me you were in foster care," she said softly. "Some stories are harder to tell than others," he replied. "Maybe that's why I stopped that night. Maybe I saw something of myself in those three little faces." Lily nodded, understanding flooding through her. All these months she'd wondered why a wealthy man with no connection to her would upend his life to help her family. Now it made sense. "What happens now?" she asked. David looked at her, his expression more open than she'd ever seen it. "Now we keep building what we started. Together, if that's what you want." As they left the building, reporters shouted more questions, cameras flashed. But all Lily could think about was that word, together, and how right it felt. 1 year had passed since the press conference. The morning sun streamed through the windows of a spacious kitchen as Lily prepared breakfast, smiling as she heard the familiar chaos of little feet and excited voices approaching. "Slow down, guys," David's voice called out, followed by the sound of giggling toddlers. Noah burst into the kitchen first, now 2.5 years old and full of energy. "Mama, we helped with garden." Tyler and Aaron tumbled in behind him, their small hands and clothes covered in dirt from the backyard garden David had planted with them. David followed, looking equally dirty but happier than Lily had ever seen him. "Sorry about the mess," he said, not looking sorry at all. The boys wanted to plant the sunflower seeds before breakfast. Lily shook her head, smiling. "At least take your shoes off before you track mud through the entire house." It was still strange sometimes, calling this place the house instead of David's house. After 6 months of dating, real dating, with babysitters and dinners out and long conversations that had nothing to do with work, David had asked Lily and the boys to move in with him. Not to his mansion on the lake, which he'd sold, but to this warm, welcoming home closer to the city, with a big backyard and rooms for each of the boys. As they ate breakfast together, Lily marveled at how much had changed. The Chen Foundation had grown beyond anyone's expectations, now helping hundreds of families across the state with everything from emergency medical assistance to education grants. Lily had been promoted to executive director, leading a team of 20 dedicated staff members. David had changed too. He'd stepped back from day-to-day operations at Chen Technologies, focusing instead on mentoring young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds. The ruthless businessman was gone, replaced by a patient teacher who found more satisfaction in helping others succeed than in his own achievements. But the biggest change was in their family life. After the press conference, David had begun spending even more time with the triplets, reading them stories, teaching them to throw balls, sitting patiently through tantrums. They had their own special rituals: Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday afternoon trips to the Children's Museum, bedtime songs that David made up himself. "Don't forget we have the foundation gala tonight," Lily reminded him as she wiped syrup from Aaron's face. David nodded. "Your parents are still okay to watch the boys?" "They're excited about it. Dad bought new puzzles especially for tonight." Lily's parents had moved closer 6 months ago, another change that had made life fuller. They'd been hesitant about David at first, protective of their daughter after all she'd been through. But he had won them over with his genuine love for the triplets and his obvious respect for Lily. After breakfast, as Lily helped the boys change into clean clothes, she found herself thinking about how far they'd come, from that terrifying night on the roadside to this warm, chaotic, joy-filled morning. It was a journey she could never have imagined. Later that evening, as they drove to the gala, David seemed unusually quiet. "Nervous about your speech?" Lily asked, reaching over to straighten his tie. "Not exactly," he replied, a slight smile playing at his lips. "Just thinking about some things." The ballroom was packed with donors, beneficiaries, and community leaders when they arrived. The gala marked the 1-year anniversary of the foundation's public launch, and there was much to celebrate. Over 300 families had received direct assistance. 4 community childcare centers had opened in underserved neighborhoods. 20 single parents had completed degree programs with the foundation's support. As executive director, Lily spent the first hour moving through the crowd, thanking donors and introducing successful program participants. David stayed close by her side, his hand occasionally finding the small of her back, a gesture of support that had become familiar and comforting. Finally, it was time for the speeches. Lily went first, sharing stories of families whose lives had been changed, carefully protecting their privacy while conveying the impact of the foundation's work. And none of this would have been possible, she concluded, without one person who stopped on a rainy night to help a stranger, a person who saw value where others might have seen only need. Ladies and gentlemen, the founder of the Chen Foundation, David Chen. The applause was warm as David took her place at the podium. He thanked the donors and staff, acknowledged the hard work of the foundation's beneficiaries, and shared his vision for the coming year. Then his voice changed, becoming more personal. Many of you know the story of how this foundation began, he said. What you may not know is how close I came to driving past that stranded car. The room went quiet as David described his initial hesitation that night, his instinct to mind his own business, the voice of his grandmother that had prompted him to stop. I've been asked many times what made me help Lily and her boys, he continued. The truth is, I didn't help them. They helped me. His eyes found Lily in the crowd. I was a man who measured success in dollars and deals. I lived alone in a house too big for one person. I worked endless hours building a fortune I had no one to share with. I was, by society's definition, successful, and by any human measure, poor beyond words. Lily felt tears forming in her eyes as David continued. Then 3 little boys and their incredibly strong mother showed me what real wealth looks like. It looks like Noah's laughter when he figures out a new word, like Tyler's concentration when he's building with blocks, like Aaron's face when he falls asleep on your shoulder. David reached into his pocket. Which brings me to an important announcement. Lily's heart began to race as he pulled out a small velvet box. A collective gasp went through the room. I had planned an elaborate speech for this moment, David said, his voice thick with emotion. But I've learned from Lily that the most important truths are simple ones. He stepped away from the podium and walked to where Lily stood, taking her hand. As he knelt before her, phones came out to capture the moment. But Lily barely noticed. Lily Walker, David said softly, though his microphone carried his words throughout the room. You and your boys have taught me what family truly means. You've shown me that the greatest achievement isn't what you build, but who you become along the way. Will you marry me? Through tears, Lily managed to say, The boys and I are a package deal, you know. David smiled. That's what I'm counting on. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes. As applause erupted around them, David slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to embrace her. In her ear, he whispered, Thank you for passing out on the side of the road. Lily laughed through her tears. Thank you for stopping. Later that night, after the celebration, after the calls to her parents and the FaceTime with the sleepy triplets to share the news, Lily and David stood on the balcony of their home, looking at the stars. Do you ever wonder, Lily asked, what would have happened if you hadn't stopped that night? David was quiet for a moment. I don't think I could have become the person I was meant to be without you and the boys, he finally said. Some people might call that night a coincidence. I think it was always meant to happen. Lily leaned her head against his shoulder. From passing out in my car to here, it's been quite a journey. And it's just beginning, David said, his arm tightening around her waist. The best parts are still ahead. As they stood together under the vast night sky, Lily thought about the long, unlikely road that had brought them here. From a moment of crisis to a lifetime of promise, from strangers to family, from darkness to light. Sometimes the worst moments in life led to the greatest gifts. Sometimes a wrong turn led exactly where you needed to go. And sometimes a millionaire stopping to help a mother and her triplets could change everything, for all of them.